Hi, and welcome to my channel. My name's Heather, and on this channel we do things like home decor DIYs and furniture makeovers. So if that's something that interests you, go ahead and click the subscribe button in the corner of the screen. On today's video, we will be doing all things wine DIY. So we're talking wine bottles, wine glasses, and also some corks, as well as one bonus DIY for you. So be sure to stick around to the very end so you get that bonus DIY. It's short, sweet, simple, but it packs a punch. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm starting with 2 wine bottles. I already cleaned the labels off by soaking them and then scrubbing off any of the extra residue. I'll start with some Slick Stick primer. This stuff is great when you're painting on glass. If you don't have it, it's okay. Just paint another coat of whatever you're using to paint. But for this particular project, since I had the primer, I'm going to be using it. So I'm just going to apply it to the entire bottle from top to the bottom and let that dry. I'll be using a mixture of baking soda and paint to create a textured paint for the bottle. So let me show you how I do that. I'm just going to go ahead and eyeball it here, and I'm running low on this paint, so I'm going to pour about a 1/4 cup of paint and then half the amount with the baking soda. So 1/4 cup of paint and then an 1/8 cup of baking soda, and then mix that together. And it should look something like this when it's all done. I'm using a natural bristled brush. It holds this type of paint texture a lot better and makes it easier to paint with. So I'm using even strokes, and I'm going to be just covering the entire bottle and doing a second coat touch-up of anything that's peeking through. Starting at the base of the neck of the bottle, I'm going to go ahead and give it a little dab of the hot glue. You can use whatever glue that you'd like. I just didn't have any other glue at the moment, so that's why I'm using my hot glue. But I will be applying the twine to the neck of the bottle now. So securing that anchor at the base. You don't have to use the hot glue every single time that you lay down the twine. You can get away with wrapping it a few times and then putting a little dab of glue and then wrapping it a few more times. Some things you want to make sure to watch out for is if it separates along the way. So I found it helpful to keep pressing on downwards on it, and that really helps in keeping a tight wrap to it. Before I make my final cut, I'm just put a little dab of glue where I want to end it and give it a snip. I'm going to use some burlap ribbon. I got this at Michael's, but you can also get something similar at Walmart, or even the dollar store has a variety of options. So what I'm going to be doing is creating a burlap label. So I'm just measuring everything out and giving everything some pre-cuts, and then I'm going to go ahead and anchor it down with my hot glue. Starting along the back side, I just gave one thin stripe of hot glue because the hot glue can get kind of bulky and peek through that burlap. So I kind of wanted to keep things as thinned out as I could. And then I'm just going to go along a top edge of the burlap there and then follow it through with sealing it again on the back side. And now it's time for decorating. So I'm going to be using these paper flowers I got over at Michael's, but they have craft flowers like these pretty much in any craft shop. So it's not just designated to Michael's where you can find stuff like this. So I'm putting a big dollop of hot glue in the middle of that burlap label, and I'm going to be securing a really big flower right in the middle. And then I'll be adding a smaller flower to the neck of the bottle. You can have so much fun with this type of pattern and create your own look. I wanted to kind of keep it simple, and I really like the way that it turned out. So I'm starting off with 2 wine glasses, some twine, and hot glue. So we'll be wrapping this wine glass in some twine today. I find it really helpful to start off with a good solid base when wrapping in twine. So I secure a little dab of hot glue with the twine, and then I use that as my anchor to go along the rim of the glass. Wrapping things in twine is pretty easy. You just have to make sure to keep it nice and tight, and it has a tendency to separate, so you just want to make sure that you're pressing everything down as well as keeping it nice and tight when you're going around. There is a portion of this wine glass where I was able to get away with not using hot glue for every single wrap, but then as it got over the curvature, it started separating on me a bit more, so I had to use the hot glue with every single twine wrap. But I got it done. So it took about a half hour for me to wrap each wine glass. But you just put on some good music and get in a rhythm, and it's done before you know it. So now that we have our base of twine done, it is time to decorate these candle holders. So I collect these little charms here and there when I go to the craft store. I like to look at the sale section, and I can find a bunch of these for pretty cheap. So I picked out 2 of these little clocks, and I'm going to just create a slip knot and tie it around the candle holder. I think it will add the perfect bit of charm to this DIY, and I'm excited to finally use these. So after I get done securing it where I'd like it, I'm going to go ahead and seal it with some hot glue. And then what I'm going to do is wrap the twine around a bit more to kind of give it a finished look. So now that we're all done anchoring and gluing these charms down, I'm going to go ahead and decorate with a little bit of flowers. So I'm adding a dollop of hot glue to the back of the flower, and then I'm just going to go ahead and press it directly onto the twine where I'd like my flowers to be. So I'm going to incorporate a few candles into our look to really make it a completed project. So I'm going to just wrap some twine along the base of the candle to make it match with the twine in our candle holder. So just a few passes and then a knot in the back, and it'll look great. I love the way that these turned out. You're going to have to let me know what you think in the comments below. For this DIY, I'm taking a scrap piece of wood. I used it previously to test out some colors. So we'll be painting over that, but I went ahead and sanded it all down. And so I'm going to start off by applying some stain. So I'm making sure to give the stain a bit of a stir to get all that color mixed up. And then I'm using an old t-shirt sleeve, and I'm going to go ahead and give it 1 coat of stain. Once it's dry, I'm going to go in and paint with some Dixie Belle Caviar. So I really want to cover up that pink in the back. And so I'll give that about 2 coats of paint. And then I want to incorporate the black along the edges as well to give it a kind of like a smoky, kind of rich, smoky industrial look. So I'll be painting the edges of the trim as well as doing a dry brush on the face of where the stain is. So it will make it look like it has some smoky edges. I thought that was like really cool. So it'll all come together in the end, and it's all about the details, right? So I chose 4 corks in similar size, and then I needed to pick out a screw that would go through the length of the wood and also be enough to screw on that cork. And so I got these screws here, and I'm going to go ahead and do some measurements on the back. And then I'll go ahead and measure it by eye in the front. I just gauging it because they are a little bit different in size, and so nothing's going to be exact. So once I have everything all the way that I want it, I'm going to make little X marks underneath the cork so I have an indication on where to go with those screws. Now it's time to get those screws in. So I'm going to start off with this starter bit here and pre-drill my holes. This kind of helps to make sure that there's going to be less cracking, and then it's just easier to get through that wood. Then switching out to a regular drill bit, I'm going to go ahead and screw in the screws about halfway down. And then I'll just hang the piece of wood over the edge and drill in the screws the rest of the way. I know it's not the most ideal setup, but it's what I have right now, and you know, it's working. So next I'm going to take my corks and make sure I've got my patterns figured out, because they each have an individual, you know, word and what have you. So then, and just, you know, you just press them down onto that screw and screw them on top, and you have your hook shelf. I'm going to go ahead and screw on these wall mounting little brackets here. I should have done this before I put the screws on. I know it's kind of backwards, but I wasn't really thinking, so sucks to be me at this moment. But anyways, I'm just kind of just trying to hold it as steady as I can, pre-drill my holes, and then screw in those little brackets. And we have a wall-mounted cork hook shelf. How awesome is that? I recently saw these mega pints, also known as country wine glasses, and you know what? They looked really easy, and I wanted to make one, so I'm going to share it with you. So I started off with 2 of these candle holders from the dollar store, and then I added our Gorilla Glue, really strong adhesion glue, and then you just take a mason jar and stick it on top, and bada bing bada boom, and you have yourself a country wine glass, also known as a mega pint. Enjoy. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you have a favorite, go ahead and leave it down below. I'm curious to know what you guys think. Are you going to try any of these DIYs? They were so much fun to do, and I have so many more creative ideas with this, so maybe I'll do like a part 2, you know, later on down the road. I need to get a few more supplies, you know, take my time. Anyways, I really hope that you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much again for all your love and support, and I will see you next week. Bye, guys.